It's definitely crazy to think about because I would have never thought that I was gonna go like be playing semi-professional at my age, like right now.
And we are back again, episode 35 of the Box to Box podcast. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jose Tejas. I am the primary host of this show. I am joined by a very, very special guest today. It almost feels like an episode 34 part 2 because we just had his dad, Jared, up on the pod the last episode. I will link that episode in the description down below for anybody who wants to see that. And I'm about to intro our guest. Before I do, as I always say, Box to Box is presented by GOLZtv. GOLZtv is where you can find all of your free, unlimited, fan-made footy content today. Now, on to our guest. This guy is, as you can see, a little bit younger than the normal guests that we have on our show, but that is very much by design. He goes by the name of Brighton. I've heard his dad call him El Diablo at times. He is the youngest UPSL signing of all time. I'm so excited to have him on the show. Brighton Lee Sagal, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today, man.
Of course.
How are you? We're recording on a Friday afternoon. How are things?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I can't complain. I'm much better now that we're doing this. We're recording. Your dad kind of hyped you up a little bit coming onto the show today, which rightfully so, man. I think you have a lot to brag about, not just as a player, but as a person. We're going to talk about it.
Awesome.
But as I always start the show, I've kind of given you a little bit of a heads up on this one because it's an interesting question. I think it stumbles some people, but I like to ask it. Brighton Lee Sagal, who are you today?
I am a 13-year-old soccer player doing what I love and trying my best to go pro and go to the next level.
I love it, bro. I love it. So many of us were there at one point in our careers, man. And the fact that you're so like already on this amazing path at such a young age. I remember at 13, I feel like I was maybe even just starting club soccer. I probably started like 11 or 12 years old. So you're already miles ahead of where I was. And I think you're miles ahead of where a lot of players are. But we're going to talk about it. You live a very interesting life. We'll put it that way.
Yes.
And I think how I want to start this interview today is maybe start a little bit from the beginning and kind of progress to where you are today and where you are now. But let's start in the early days, man. You are still 13, so it is still very much early days for you. But let's talk about just the earliest days of you loving the game of soccer before we ever talk about how you started playing. What's the earliest memory you have of the beautiful game?
Okay, so that's a little bit of a strange question. I have video recording of me when I was like 4 months old kicking a ball. But I'm pretty sure the earliest memory I have, I was playing a game with like, for me, it was 3 years up. I was playing with like 7-year-olds when I was like 4.
Man, and back then, do you remember? I mean, you've seen the videos. Do you remember balling out against those 7-year-olds when they were that young?
It's funny because that is a very memorable moment for me because I was thinking this is crazy. This is like, it's like I'm playing against Ronaldo when I'm 13 or when I'm like 4.
Yeah, seriously, man. Let me ask you this too, because I've seen the videos. You mentioned Ronaldo right now. We've all seen young Ronaldo, right? And how crazy that series was that your dad helped create.
Mm-hmm.
That's your cousin, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So your cousin Simon, how impactful was he? Because I mean, he's obviously some years older than you are, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a passion for the game just like you do. When you're coming up, you're a little kid, you're balling out against these kids who are just a little bit older than you, right? At that time, quite a bit older than you. Did Simon help you on that journey at all? Or I mean, did serve as kind of inspiration? Was your dad kind of your inspiration? Like who were the figures and the players that you kind of looked up to when you were youngest?
I've had a lot of inspirations, but Simon was definitely had a big impact on me because he started playing super late and he just decided that he was going to just take everything seriously. And he started working out, going to the gym, training multiple hours a day. And I just felt like that gave me motivation to start taking everything a lot more serious.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my dad was super huge on where I'm at now. He's the one that brought me into the game and gave me all the resources I needed to take everything to the next level.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So at 13 years old, what would you say right now your day is really like? Right, I mean, you're obviously practicing a lot. You have to get a lot of touches on the ball to
Yeah.
be able to sign for a UPSL team. You have to have quite a bit of skill. So if you're, I imagine you're spending a lot of time on the ball. What's the
Mhm.
average day in the life for Brighton?
Okay, so I wake up at around 6:25, 6:30, and
Mm-hmm.
eat breakfast, put on my clothes, and then I go to training with San Fernando.
Mm-hmm.
It starts at 8 and then ends at 10:30 usually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then come back, do all my schoolwork, meet with tutors, try and get all my schoolwork done, and then go back out to the field from 4 to 7 maybe. Sometimes I go up to even like 9.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Man, so and just so we kind of get an understanding, you're what, maybe like an hour away from San Fernando?
yeah, yeah. Like in out depending on traffic. It's LA. There's terrible traffic.
That there is, man. I've been out there a couple times. That there is. So I mean, your life is like very well scheduled, very well maintained. You have a lot going on. Like throughout the year, how does that change? And the reason I'm asking this question is for those who aren't aware. You know, your dad kind of mentioned this in the last episode. You partway through the year, you venture out into the UK and you take your training and everything overseas. And so I don't know, when those moments in the year, kind of hit, how does your life change, your day-to-day life?
Um, it's kind of interesting. It's not that huge of a difference because the place that I stay at in England, it has a field on the roof that I can go to whenever I want. So usually I do a very similar schedule to out here. I wake up in the morning, do like eat breakfast, get dressed, go up, train for an hour or two with my dad, and sometimes if my roommate comes out, I'm not sure with my roommate, and
Mm-hmm.
then come back, do schoolwork, go to the store, get some lunch, go back out, train on the roof again, and then go to training with Man City.
Wow, man, that's so interesting, man. You live such a unique life in comparison to other 13-year-olds. I remember, like I said, I think I lived before when I was 13. I mean, I think even the amount of hours during the day that I spent on the ball were, I don't know, maybe half of what you spend. Like, if you had to put a number on it, how much time throughout any given day do you think you spend touching the ball, practicing, training, anything in between?
I'd say anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day.
Man, and it's obviously gotten you to where you are. So, what I mean, is there any, if there was a piece of advice you could give to young ballers, young talents out there, what would it be? Because I feel like there's so many kids in this country that feel that, and maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe it depends on the player, the family, but I feel as though there are a lot of players who feel the training they get at their local club, right, the Tuesdays and Thursdays that they go to practice every week,
Mhm.
are enough. What would you say to that player?
I would say if you do more work with the ball, I can promise it will pay off. If the more touches you get, it will 100% help you improve. But it really depends on what you do during that training. You can't just take shots and stuff. That's not really a training to me. Like you have to dribble through cones, focus on your skill moves, and then of course you got to take a couple of shots. But my recommendation is shoot with both feet. It will 100% affect the way that you play if you are both footed. That's
Yeah.
what I can say.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say not even just shooting, right? I mean, passing,
Mm-hmm.
getting comfortable dribbling with both feet,
Mm-hmm.
all that goes a mile, right? And that's why I think, learning from your journey and kind of where you've been is super important for the next generation behind you, and the parents behind you who still think that, hey, I don't think my kid my kid can make it pro without all of that training. And I think that that's a little bit of a pipe dream, right? I think it's a little bit of an illusion, right? But
Yeah,
either way, it sounds like your dad was instilling some pretty good habits from the very beginning. I'm really curious.
definitely.
What's y'all's relationship like? I mean, like, do you feel like at times he's more of a coach, more of a dad? Like, walk me through just kind of how you guys go back and forth with each other.
It's rough having a dad being split between a dad and a coach because at trainings every once in a while we'll get into an argument because anything really, and then it affects us at the house, and the next day we're like best friends again. It's like It's up and down, but it's never going to be an easy thing to have your dad as a coach too.
Yeah, I hear that. In all honesty, man, I honestly couldn't do it. My younger brother, we're three boys in this household, and my younger brother had my dad as his coach, basically the entire youth level. I almost requested after like one or two sessions that my dad not be my coach because we were just not going to get along.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's kind of what you're alluding to a little bit, right? Like that's some of the dynamic you kind of have to balance. Where does the nickname El Diablo come from?
Okay, so this is a funny story. So I trained at UCLA on this one day, and I did not play that good. And so there's two levels of parking. So the top level is where everybody parks, and the bottom level there is no cars, nothing. So I went down there and I started doing sprints, and there was so much carbon monoxide, like you could just kind of tell. Like obviously you can't see or smell it, but you can just tell that there is a lot down there. It is so isolated. So we called it Dante's Inferno, and I forgot how it was, but that translated El Diablo to me because I was always down there doing like sprinting, passing against the walls, and like playing 5v5 with some of my friends.
Yeah, probably not the healthiest that you could be doing, right? Yeah. But still, man, you're committed to the grind. I love it. I think, you know, when your dad first told me about the nickname El Diablo, I kind of just figured maybe it was like you had this, I don't know, this fiery personality. You were just like out there kind of commanding the ball. Maybe every now and then you I don't know, demanded a certain levels out of the players around you. Do you think you carry some of that personality on the field? Like, help me understand how you play. Are you kind of that leader on the pitch? You want your teammates to elevate their game to match you, or do you really just let your playing do the talking?
I try my best to treat the trainings and games as a captain. I try to so the position that I play like the 8, 10, or 6, which is center midfield.
Sure.
I don't get all the goals. I usually set up the goals, if that makes sense. So I'll get it from the back, play it to the wide, get it back, play it wide again. Mm-hmm. So for me, I kind of have to control the wheel or the game. So I have to tell people what to do a lot. I have to command the ball. So like a lot of people will just be like, yeah, and you gotta go like ball. Like,
mm-hmm.
You gotta get them, yeah. Like it's gonna sound bad, but you gotta get them scared to the point that they have to give you the ball. So that's my recommendation.
I love it, man. No, 100%. I think demanding is, like you said, it's the perfect word to describe how you have to really kind of. I use the word dictate. I think, I think dictate's a great word for a true 8, a true 10, someone who constantly has to have the ball at their feet, constantly has to be looking over their shoulder to make sure that they know where the opposition is or know where their teammates are. And is, like you mentioned, usually creating the opportunities for your team to go score, but you're not the one scoring the goals. Do you think, I'm trying to get an understanding of how you came to be in that position, right? Like me personally, I'm a defender, and I didn't always start as a defender. I feel like I was a winger who converted to an outside back over time because of how I understood players' movement and how I understood my runs. And it was just easier for me to defend. What do you love about being that interior midfielder, the 8, the 10, and how did you end up playing that position?
Okay, so from birth to, I'd say 8 or 9, I was a striker. So I've always played in the center, and I was a striker for most of, well, I'm still young, but like most of my really young days.
Sure.
And then I just noticed like one day it was just like I got number 10 on the team that I was playing for, and Messi was always like a huge influence to me. I loved the way that he played, and it's interesting because my cousin's young Ronaldo, but Messi's always been a big influence on me, and I got number 10 and it really affected me, and I thought I'm gonna try out the 10 for one of the games. So I told my coach, and then I played the 10 and I started loving it. And my dad's always wanted me to be a midfielder, so at the time I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, it's one of the hardest things to do, and you're right. Messi dictated so many of the plays, right? Either finishing it himself or creating so much space for other players that it looked easy, right? It looked easy to finish those goals because of how much work he put in to create those spaces for his teammates. The
Mhm.
10 is sometimes a very underrated position, but a lot of times you kind of know that player is the most impactful person on the pitch, right? Like they're
100%.
they're going to be what drives the whole team forward.
For sure.
So you mentioned Messi. Did you ever look up to guys like, I don't know, the guys maybe who were feeding him, Xavi or Iniesta or any of
I
those guys?
I've loved Iniesta my whole life.
Yeah,
I've always before trainings I'd watch like videos of Iniesta and how he played, and I visualized before trainings. And I'm gonna be real here. I've relatively stopped doing that because most of the time I don't have my phone, so I don't have the time to do that very much anymore.
yeah,
And but definitely I should start getting back onto that because it was helping me a lot.
yeah. I mean, visualizing. I think it's an underrated skill.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had coaches when I was coming up who really emphasized that, and they would do it more in a team setting. We would come together right before the match start, and we would visualize. He would tell defenders, visualize yourself making the tackles. You know, if you're a striker, visualize hitting it with both feet. You know, and if you're a midfielder, visualize those through balls, those lob balls over the top. You know, whatever it may be, visualize yourself doing it so it becomes that much more natural, and we take the field.
Definitely.
But I think at the same time, that transition that you made, that you just described right now, moving from a striker to a 10, that's not an easy thing to do, even for someone as prolific as Messi, right? Who kind of
Mm-hmm.
has played every major attacking role. And then as he got older, had to become a little bit more of a creator. I don't how did you adjust to it at such a young age? You know, you were playing up top, you like to score goals. How did you adjust to then taking a step back? Like, you know what, I'm gonna start setting up the goals.
Mm-hmm. So my strong suit has always been passing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had strong legs in terms of passing and shooting. And even as a striker, I was getting the ball up top and I dribble forward and just and break the line as I say and hit it through. It's just a through ball to the wingers and then they usually just dribble. Sometimes they'll pass it back to me and I'll just shoot. So I've always been more of a creator for like the whole time that I've been playing. And I feel like I like to pass a lot and I like to pass it and get it back and pass it and get it back. So
Yeah.
it's like as my dad says, it's like you're giving somebody, let's just say, cereal or something. Like you can have one bite, you got to give it to them, and they have to give it back to you. Give it to another person and give it back to you. So
I
that's
love
what I
that
like to do.
analogy. Yeah, that's a great analogy, right? Yeah, like giving them really anything, but just make sure you get it
Mm-hmm.
back, right? Get it back, find someone else, get it back, and you kind of you're the person who makes everything ebb and flow.
Definitely.
And you can tell when a team has a really good 10, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can tell when a team has that maestro, that conductor in the middle of the field that's just able to that has the vision to find everybody and feed every mouth, like you said with cereal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's really interesting, man. Is there a number 10? Is there a 10 right now? It's not even the number 10, but is there just a 10 in the modern game today outside of guys like, you know, that are GOAT status like Messi or Ronaldo?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a 10 that you really look up to that you watch maybe in the Prem or La Liga or even in MLS that you're just like, man, that's kind of the 10 that I want to start emulating slowly?
Um, he's not a 10, but I really love the way that De Bruyne plays. But
Yeah.
he's not necessarily my position, but the
Mm-hmm.
way that he plays, I compare myself to him in a way. Like because he always hits the ball long to the wings usually, and he'll pass it, run, get it back, pass it, run, get it back. So that's
Yeah.
always been a big thing to me, and especially since I've been able to watch him in person multiple times, it's like it's just insane to see him.
Dude, he gets on the ball for everything, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like it's so weird. He'll get outside of the pitch, start crossing it in. He'll take shots from deep, you know, 5-10 yards away from the 18.
Mm-hmm.
He'll find Holland on a through ball in the middle of the park. You're just like, De Bruyne is literally everywhere. I have no idea how you know center backs or outside backs even keep up trying to track him on the pitch because, like you said, he's not a traditional 10, like a traditional creator. He's almost like a hybrid attacking mid slash center forward. I don't know. It's really weird. He occupies a very unique type of role. But you mentioned something there: training at Man City, watching him in person.
Yeah.
Outside of De Bruyne, is there? I've seen your Instagram, man. You got pictures with everybody, right? Like you obviously have been trained with quite a few pros.
Yeah, I got a
Um,
lot.
what's it like, man? Being at City, like I don't know, being a kid, one from the U.S., but then even meeting some of those guys in real life. To me, it sounds like a pipe dream. I've never gotten a chance to do that myself. So what was that like?
It's just a dream basically, and I'm a little bit sad about it. I still haven't met De Bruyne yet, and
Oh man, you
that's what I'm
haven't.
waiting for. That's what I'm waiting for. I don't know
Yeah.
where I can find him. So what I'm training is just after the pros finish. So you'll see them drive out sometimes, and
Hmm.
sometimes they'll be in like limos. Sometimes they'll just be driving themselves, and all my friends are like getting pictures of them, and I'm just like standing there, and I'm just like, because most of the players that they're getting pictures with, like, it's gonna sound really bragging, but I've got pictures with everybody that they've getting pictures with, and I've just been waiting for De Bruyne or Foden to come out.
Dude, Phil Foden, talking about young ballers, right?
Yeah.
That guy is going to be something special. I think we can all see it.
Mhm.
I think that at some point he's going to be probably the star of the show, right? De Bruyne's getting a little bit older. Foden's still a very young talent, and I think he's going to find his way in. Outside of Manchester City, though, there's a lot of young talents in England. Have
Mhm.
you got a chance to really see anybody else play? Is there anybody else that you kind of have your eye on that you're like, man, not only do I kind of just admire their skills, but hopefully I get a chance to meet them. Hopefully I get a chance to maybe play alongside them or train alongside them.
I really like Cole Palmer also. I
Oh,
like that. I like the way he plays. I have a feeling that not everybody that's listening in right now will know who he is, but
they probably won't.
there will be. I have a feeling there's going to be a couple of people that know who he is, but to me, I like the way he plays. I really do, and I feel like he's going to be one of the next like really good players. I'm not going to say the best, but I feel like he's going to be pretty up there with like midfielders.
What do you think Cole does well on the field?
He's just really hardworking player. Like he does not stop running. He's just got like he doesn't stop moving. He's always moving around the field. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think you kind of have to have that for his position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always get it. That's the thing, right? You still every now and then get players who, especially in that role up top, get stuck. Or they get so used to just playing exactly where they are, they hover in that same 20-yard patch of the field and don't really kind of move. They're just there. Finding someone who's not just is running from side to side aimlessly, but knows what they're doing, making intelligent runs, freeing up spaces for other players. That's massive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you play similarly, or describe your playing style to me outside of the fact that you're a creator?
Okay, so this is another thing that my dad mentions. So we call it the string. So
Okay.
if the string is too long, you're not going to get the ball from the player that's on the ball. So you have to go closer to the player. Don't be like all up in his business, all up in his face, but you got to be relatively close to him so that he'll pass it to you. Then you can go to the other side of the field. So at City, the way that they play is they switch the ball a lot. Like for my age group, so they'll play it to the middle, play it out wide, play the striker back, and then wide. So it's like it's a really complicated like playing style, but
Mm-hmm.
you get used to it.
Yeah. No, you definitely get used to it at some point, right? But you're right. Not a lot of players can come in and learn a brand new style, a new system, especially one as forward thinking as City. Because I imagine, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that the system and the tactics that Pep implements at the first team level trickles down into the academy. And he wants to make sure that the youth players are learning the same system, the same tactics, so that they can come in and make an impact at the first team level. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually very correct. So they're definitely taking influence from the top level, like the way that they play.
Yeah. What's been your biggest struggle in learning that system?
Um, People don't trust you at first. So the first two games that I had with them, they were not passing to me. They were like, "Who's this American kid?" Like,
That's a great accent. That's a
yeah,
great accent. That's pretty spot on.
I've tried my best to get it on the point.
Well, you've had a lot of practice, right? I mean, you
I
get
have,
exposed to it all the time. If
yeah.
I tried my English accent right now, it would sound terrible. But with that said, I mean, dig a little bit deeper for me, right? Of course, that's a struggle. You not getting the ball, right? But when you started getting the ball, was it all just roses and daisies, or like what did you actually have to really, even still getting the ball, had to learn how to make the right passes, where to make the right runs, get your timings right, right? I mean, were there any obstacles or struggles you had with that?
They're definitely. So they play so much different in terms of positioning out there.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I usually play out to the wingers, but at City they usually play with wing backs instead of wingers. So they play like, I'm pretty sure they played like five. I forgot what it was. But it was five in the back instead
Oh
of
wow.
instead of four with like two wingers.
Mm-hmm.
So they had two wing backs and then three in the center. So it was a little bit different for me. I'm not gonna say weird, but it was different for me. So I had to get adapted to that by playing it back instead of going forward every time. So basically, I play it back, play it across, get it, dribble forward a little bit, and then try and aim for somebody up top.
Yeah, that's the five back system's really interesting, and it's very modern. I would say you're growing up at a time where the game is shifting a little bit, right? I grew up in the traditional 4-4-2, but then it got changed when Pep took over at Barca, kind of revolutionized the game with tiki taka football, and you started getting overloads in the midfield, forwards dropping in. The 4-3-3 became very prominent, and now this whole idea of a 3-4-3 or a 5-3-2 or whatever it may be with wingbacks, like it feels like it would have been very, very different for me. Like it would have been not. And I'm talking mainly from the standpoint of an outside back, right? Playing with three center backs next to me and then a wing back on the opposite side. It just sounds like it'd be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're transitioning, and still most American teams still implement the four back system. I don't think anybody at the youth level really runs a five back system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, if you had to compare the two, that America is, I don't know, is still pretty far behind some of the tactics and the way they play the game overseas in the UK?
I think they are a little bit behind, but they are definitely starting to catch up, for sure. In terms of academies, like
Mm-hmm.
for academy level, they're getting a lot of improvement. So like the teams that are around me, like LAFC, LA Galaxy,
Yeah,
they're getting a lot of different playing styles, I guess you could say, and they're getting a lot more serious, for sure.
I
So
love
like
that.
in England at City, it's a very professional system. So like you'll get there, or this is before COVID, and they just started doing this before, like right before I left. So I was a little bit sad about it. So you'll go to the training ground. You'll go out. I just take an Uber. Sometimes I'll walk because or not the hotel, the apartment that I stay at, or the flat. it's like a 20-minute walk from
Okay.
Etihad. So I'll walk to games, and then every once in a while I'll walk to training. And then so you just got to go through the gate. Like they let you in. They don't like you can kind of tell. Like and they have like
They've seen you before, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then you go in just whatever you want to wear. Go in the locker, or you wait in like the waiting room with like your mates in the waiting room, and then you go into the locker room, change a little bit, and then head out training, come back. Most likely, it's gonna be raining afterwards. It rains 24/7 there. So, yeah.
Is that just a Manchester thing, or is that like the UK in general?
I'm pretty sure Manchester is the worst in England in terms of weather.
Yeah.
But for me, I've always grown up in the sunny California weather. So it's really nice to get into the rain, and I've always loved the rain. Like I don't know what it is. I always play better in the rain. There's something about it. Like because I can like they're called grass cutters, so you can hit it and then it just bounces a little bit. And you can just curve it on the ground and it just like has a beautiful spin on it. So I like it a lot more in rain.
It's kind of why they at the pro level, right? You see a lot of, and they're doing it more now at the youth level, but you see a lot of groundskeepers. They make sure that the pitch is wet before the match starts, right? Mm-hmm. And you see the ball do some insane things. How many matches do you think you've been to? Not even just at the Etihad, but in the UK in general.
that's a tough question. I'd say probably around 30, maybe.
Wow, 30.
Yeah, 35. So basically at the end of the season, I guess you could say. Huge shout out to him. So Julian Alvarez.
Yeah.
So he lived in our apartment building, and I was waiting in the lobby to see him, and I got a picture with him, and his manager, his name is Sergio, and the whole family was moving into the apartment, and they got like 5 apartments for the whole family.
Wow.
And the family is just the nicest family, and like Julian is so humble, like he's probably the most humble player you'll meet. And he has 2 brothers. One's so they had names for them. One's they call him Punchi, and the other one is Agu. And my dad set them up for a team in Manchester, and I've always like just admired that family because they're just the nicest people, and like they're so humble. And like he signed a jersey and gave it to me before I left, and it said like to Brighton from Julian, like can't wait to see you again.
I love that, man.
Just the nicest family.
That's awesome, and that feels good, man. Because it feels like when I watch him play. Granted, I don't have the interactions that you've had with him. Like he looks like he'd be humble, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen him go over the top with the celebration. I've never seen him, and that's like he's won a World Cup, right? You think about a World Cup winner at such a young age, and doing everything he's doing at Man City, signing another contract. I think he just got all this success at an early age, just like you're seeing, right, in your career. And I would consider you to be a very humble person and player. I think you're well spoken. I think it's more difficult to find as I've gotten older, seeing kids who see early success very early on, and still manage to kind of maintain their values, still have good people around them, and that kind of keep them in a straight line, right? They know what got them there, and they're going to keep on that same path. And I like to think that that's going to be you, right? That you're going to continue to move. You're going to continue to remember where you came from, all the work that you put in. And, it's going to continue to keep you humble as you see more success. You mentioned, though, you mentioned LAFC before and the LA Galaxy and kind of how, US is starting to close the gap a little bit. There are more players now moving from the US to other leagues in Europe or other leagues around the world. Considering that you've already kind of started to do that a little bit, you've been to Manchester, you've trained. Do you think that there's going to be? We'll talk about your UPSL signing here in a few minutes, but when you think about the road that you're already on this path to pro. What's the dream? What is there? I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be City. I know you probably have a lot of loyalty to City because of how much you train there and whatnot. But I don't know when you think about where you've always wanted to play, where you've always wanted to be. Is there a club or a league of choice that you just automatically think of?
Honestly, well, of course, City would be the dream for me because I've always been a City supporter, like literally my whole life. City and Barca have always been my 2 teams.
Love that.
And it's actually interesting because the 3 teams I support in different leagues have all been coached by Pep Guardiola. So it's Bayern, Barca, and City. So
it's a great coach.
There's some kind of connection there, but it's just honestly anything that's even second division, just anything that's pro would be just outstanding for me. I'm not specific about the team. I'll play on any team. Just anything that's pro would be a dream come true.
I like that, man. And look, don't ever, and just a little piece of advice from me to you, don't ever lose that. I think that that's something that when you really want something, you really want to go after it. Sometimes people get lost in the sauce, right? Players start saying, and I say this because I also play college soccer here in the States, and I used to get a lot of kids that were behind me when I would talk to them about where they wanted to be, what they wanted to do. I'd get a lot of, well, I have to play D1. It's D1 or bust. Like I can't do anything else. Like it has to be top level. It's just not worth it. And in my mind, I'm like, but like less than 10% of all high school players go on to play college. If you make it to college ball, isn't that kind of the dream? Or if you, and then the percentage is even lower of kids who go play pro. Like, isn't that really the dream? Like if you're playing anywhere, it should be great. And then from there, you can just push it as far as you can push it. I mean, I love that you have this mindset. Do you think that really comes from, I don't know, your family? Do you think that really comes from, I don't know, your coaching? Like, what is it that really, like, you know, drives you to want to play pro? Is it just, 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 your dad, your family, your background? Like, you seem like a very humble kid, man. Like, Brighton, where does that mentality really come from?
It's definitely from my dad, for sure. And he played. It's always hard for me to remember. I'm pretty sure he played third division in Germany and Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's awesome. Like, he got to play pro in Europe and got to live in Europe just by doing something that he loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's literally nothing better than that, right? Literally got to become a man playing the game that he loves and got paid to do it. I mean, and you just get to experience a completely foreign country, get to become a little more cultured. I don't know. It sounds like a massive win, and that's why I think that it's a great to hear that you really have that same kind of mentality and you share that. I would say don't ever lose that, man. Well, look, we are getting somewhat close to the end of the interview. I do want to talk a little bit about two things. First, young Beckham.
Yeah.
I think that was a great series. It followed up young Ronaldo in a really great way. I'm really curious, man. Like, obviously, we talked a lot about you being a young baller, but you also got a chance to be the talent in a content series. Not everybody gets to go down that route. Not everybody has a filmmaker in the family to kind of, put you in that position. So what was that like? Was it, I don't know, was it awkward? Was it fun? Was it everything in between? Like how did that series become a thing, and how did you feel going through it?
Well, first off, I gotta say I'm blessed to have like two great parents, and especially a dad that's like films movies and shows. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so he had an idea because young Ronaldo blew up, and I had met Beckham. And the funny coincidence is I was wearing a United jersey at the time. Hence, I am a City supporter, but I had a United jersey on because I had my name on the back of it. Gift from my dad. He's always been a United supporter. And yeah, so he gave me that, and then it had 7 on the back, which was Beckham's number.
Yep.
And I had dinner with my grandparents. I remember this very well. So I had dinner with my grandparents, my dad, and my mom. And this was like before my sister was born. And we were going to grab a crepe or a crepe at a place in Beverly Hills, and Beckham was getting out of a limo, I'm pretty sure it was, or like a Chevy that was like tinted. And my dad noticed him by his arm, by the tattoos of his arm. And my dad's like stopped. He was like, "That's Beckham." I was like, "That Beckham?" And he walked in. I was like, "That's Beckham." So I got a picture with him, and he like talked to me, and he was also a very, very humble person. And I talked to him for about like 5 minutes. He ordered his crepe, went back into his limo, and just drove away.
Man, how long ago do you think this was?
6 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say it's probably
5, 6.
right. Was this wasn't his LA Galaxy days, was it?
I'm pretty sure this is right after he retired from Galaxy.
Yeah. Okay. Man, I'm not sure if you're too young to remember, but I think when he first came to the States from the Galaxy, it's still one of the craziest experiences I've had as a soccer fan in this country. I just remember, he couldn't go anywhere. He couldn't go anywhere without being mauled by people. And a lot of people knew Beckham, and it's crazy that there were still some people that didn't even realize he was like that giant of a soccer player, because he was like a fashion icon. He was known for so many things, but every major soccer or football fan knew what he was famous for. And I feel like he got just as much attention as he got when he moved from Manchester United to Real Madrid, right? When he made that move and everything that came along with it. So you mentioned, that's kind of how the idea came along. What was it like, I don't know, being on camera as a young kid, telling a story, really? Because that's what you're kind of doing with that video, right? Is you're telling a story. I don't know. Was it awkward for you? Did it come naturally?
I've always been very calm with cameras, and it just kind of I was doing YouTube already, so
Okay.
I was like, it's kind of normal to me. Like I got normalized eventually to it, and then yeah, so I got to switch up my story a little bit here. So I met Beckham a long time ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, and then we filmed the movie. I want to say 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I'm honestly I've lost track of time, but I'm pretty sure it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Was when we started recording, and I was very I was like a clown during that, so I was like we were cutting a lot because I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. I remember one of the scenes. So it's called the LA Galaxy Soccer Center, and it's a football center or futsal center, sorry, or indoor football, and it's 5-a-side for people that don't know, and we were really close with a lot of the people that were in there, and there was a classroom that had kids in it, or not kids, but like high schoolers, because there was a high school down the street and they had classrooms there, and we went in and we asked the teacher, like, straightforward, can we film something in here with our students and you? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he was the principal also, and we didn't know that until later. And so we started filming, and then he was like telling me to like focus, and I was drawing like a soccer field on like a piece of paper instead of doing my test. And later on, we went to like the manager room, and then he was my principal, and he's like, I need you to get into uniform, because I was wearing a United jersey, and he was like, I need you to get into uniform. You can't keep coming to school in a soccer jersey. And I had like a bowl at my feet, and I was like messing around. It like went down. I couldn't stop laughing. So I was like, it was a very fun journey.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I'm glad you had fun with it too. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I think so many kids get camera shy. I mean, even adults. Let's be honest. There's plenty of adults who get camera shy, and it's kind of cool that you know, you're not that way. And it probably helps, right? Having, you know, a filmmaker for a dad, and you know, probably helping you just ease some of the concerns. I'm very impressed though, man. You're very natural in front of camera. You're not shy about telling stories. I think, you know, if you ever wanted to at some point later on in your career put footy down, right, and pick up, I don't know, right, being in front of camera, acting, whatever it may be, who knows, right? I think there's always I feel like there's gonna be a ton of doors open for you when the time is right. With that said, though, how I kind of want to wrap this up is you have a major announcement. It's very, very recent. You have signed with a UPSL team at the age of 13. That is massive, man. I don't want to underplay that at all. That is huge. So what's this, I don't know, let's say this week, right, been like for you? Is it still kind of surreal? Do you get questions about it every now and then from family or friends?
A lot of people were laughing about it because I talked to my cousin a little bit about it, and like I try to stay humble, but I was kind of messing with my cousin a little bit. I was like, "You're 18. I'm gonna play against you in UPSL," and we were like laughing about it. And sorry, he's 19 now. And then I was like, you know, I'm gonna play against you in a division that's like semi-pro. I was like, see how this goes.
Yeah, I mean, are you excited about that prospect? But even just like, I don't know, the fact that that's going to be the case for basically every team, right? It's not just him, not just your cousin, but literally any player. You're going to be a fair amount younger than anybody else you're coming up against. Yeah. What goes through your mind when you think about that?
It's definitely crazy to think about, because I would have never thought that I was gonna go like be playing semi-professional at my age, like right now. And I'm gonna like tell a little bit of the story. It's a little bit like sidetracked, but we were trying to get me to sign when I was 12. Like we were trying so hard, and we signed. I'm pretty sure it was the day before my birthday, the day before I turned 13.
Wow.
So I turned 13 on the 7th. I'm pretty sure we signed on like the 5th or the 6th, like so that it can say 12 instead of 13 when I signed. So it was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
So we went to this YMCA that's next to the field that we train at, and we went to the guy that like owns it. We went to his office, put up a little green screen, and then we did like the whole signing with my coach and then the assistant coach, and we signed it and made it official that I was on the team. And I had a game 2 days afterwards.
So you started right away, right? Quick and fast. You got right back out there. And what was that? I mean, you played 2 days later. How'd it go?
It was. I'm trying to remember what happened. I couldn't remember what happened in the game, but I'm pretty sure we tied 1-1. I want to say.
Kind of a blur.
Yeah. I can't remember the team now. I can't remember who we played against. But
No
on that day, I had two games on the weekend.
Oh wow, yeah.
I guess played with another team just to get another game in.
I love it, man. Get the touches in.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff, man.
I hop around a lot, so I'll jump into like guest playing games. Like the referees will be like, "This kid's not on the team." Oh, okay. I do remember what happened. I do remember the game now. So we played against East LA College in a friendly, and we played at their field. It's one of the worst fields I've ever played at. Not because it was a huge stadium and everything, but like the field was so hard. And I don't know how people were tearing their ACLs on there. I called it the ACL eater because I don't know how nobody tore their ACL on that game. Like hard turning on a field that's like this thick. So.
Was like all dirt?
No, it was the turf field, but there was
it was
no
turf.
beats.
It was just completely thin.
Yeah, it was like turf and concrete under it.
Oh wow, yeah. So even like going in for a tackle, it must have been like you were just diving onto cement.
Exactly.
Oh so man, yeah.
I slide tackled once and my leg was torn up. It was not fun.
Oh man, I remember those days. I don't envy them at all. I mean, I remember exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's not fun, but at the same time, right? It's just kind of it's a friendly. You kind of get out there, your first game under contract. It's kind of fun. I think at the end of the day, I'm sure there's probably a lot that you took away from it. Before we wrap up, were you nervous at all going into that game?
I wasn't really that nervous because I jump into a lot of pickup games with adults, and I've been doing that since I was like 8 or 9. I've always been playing with older kids or older people, so I've been playing with college kids and adults. And there's this guy named Kareem who I play pickup with, and he's a very, very nice guy, and he's been letting me jump into pickup since I was like 8, and he has like really, really good pickups with like college D1 kids.
Oh wow,
so it's a good experience. So I wasn't that nervous, and I remember right before the game started, the referee walked up to my coach Carlos, and he said, "Did he sign waivers in case he gets injured?" And my coach looked at my dad, and my dad was like, "No, we did not sign a contract. I just gotta say that I did not sign a waiver for anything." And we're like, "Yes." So yeah, the referee let me play, and I got I'm pretty sure it's like 30 or 40 minutes.
Man, dude, that's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you. I think this is a crazy journey you're probably about to go on. Not that you haven't already been doing those things, right? I mean, you've been training with Manchester City. You spent half a year in the UK, half a year in the US. I feel like you're living the dream that so many players wish they could have. And it's great to hear that you're just being as humble as you possibly can along the way, man. Before we wrap up, I do want to give you really quick a stage to kind of, I don't know, shout anything that you're working on out, whether it be, I don't know, things you're working on with your dad, things you're working on for this new UPSL team. What's next for Brighton Lee Sagal?
I am going back out to England in 3 or 4 weeks, and I just signed a contract, nice. But the season is very quick. It's a very quick season. So I'm going to go back out to England, go back out to City, and I'm going to try to get a visa so I can sign for a team there. And that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and sign a contract out there. That's my goal.
Awesome, man. I have a really good feeling you're going to accomplish it. I really do.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, look, man, I've had you here for nearly an hour. This has been a great interview, Bright. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Thank you so much. I think your story is going to be very inspiring for the next generation of footballers who want to go out and do exactly what you're doing. But in case anyone wants to follow along on his journey, I'm going to link his socials down below in the description notes. Check those out and be sure to kind of follow Brighton as he continues his journey on his path to not just being a pro baller, but again, achieving his dream of playing pro overseas in Europe. Brighton, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This was a great opportunity, I think, for both of us, and I'm excited to see where you go next. For everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in to Box. My name is Jose Tejas. We'll see you guys next time.